Okay, just imagine this for a second. You're an elite athlete, and you're in the middle of one of the most brutal races on the entire planet. You're in the Sahara Desert, surrounded by 134 other runners, and then, poof, you vanish. Just gone. No trace. 9 days later, you turn up in a different country, having somehow survived the absolute impossible. Well, let's get into the incredible and totally true story of Mauro Prosperi.
And these are Mauro's own words. This quote really gets to the heart of what this is all about. You see, this isn't just a story about survival. It's a story about transformation. We're going to explore how the Sahara, the very thing that almost took everything from him, ended up giving him a whole new perspective on life.
So who is this guy who's willing to take on the desert? Well, meet Mauro Prosperi. At the time, he's a 38-year-old Italian police officer and a pentathlete. Now, the pentathlon is no joke. It forges athletes who can master 5 completely different sports. It builds this iron will, this refusal to ever give up. He had no idea just how much that mindset was about to be put to the ultimate test.
He was running the Marathon des Sables, the Marathon of the Sands. And look, the concept is brutally simple. 251 kilometers across the Sahara over 7 days. But here's the kicker. It's self-supported. That means everything you need to survive, your food, your gear, all of it, has to be on your back. The organizers only give you water, so the stakes are just sky high from the second you start.
For the first 3 days, things were going pretty much to plan. Mauro and his buddy had covered almost 100 kilometers of rocky terrain and scorching hot salt flats. But on day 4, the race for a medal turned into a desperate, terrifying fight just to stay alive.
A sandstorm. Not just a little wind, but a furious 8-hour monster of a storm just descended on the desert. The wind whipped up a solid wall of sand, making it impossible to see anything. It completely erased the trail markers. Mauro was terrified he'd be buried alive if he stopped, so he just kept running, thinking he was on the right path. But every step was taking him deeper and deeper into the empty heart of the Sahara.
And you would see here just how quickly everything fell apart. The sandstorm hits on day 4. By day 5, his water's gone. He sees a rescue helicopter. A moment of hope. He fires his only flare, but the pilot is blinded by the sun's glare and just flies right past him. Can you imagine that feeling? By day 6, he stumbles on an abandoned shrine. And by day 7, trapped inside, he's absolutely convinced his life is over.
But his story was so far from over. What happened next is it's a masterclass in human endurance. It's a testament to that raw, primal instinct to live, no matter what. He had to figure out how to survive in one of the deadliest places on Earth. I mean, really think about that. That's the question staring you in the face. You're completely alone, miles and miles from anything or anyone. Your body is shutting down, screaming for fuel. Where do you possibly turn when there's nothing but sand and rock as far as you can see?
Well, the answer is you do whatever it takes. To get liquid, he drank his own urine. Inside that shrine he found, there was a colony of bats, so he would cut their heads off and drink their blood. He ate raw lizards, snakes, whatever insects he could find. He even dug up plant roots just to chew on them for a tiny drop of moisture.
After days of this, his body and his mind were just completely breaking down. He's trapped in the shrine, and he's now certain that nobody is coming for him. And in that moment of just total, absolute despair, he made a decision. He decided he wasn't going to suffer a slow, agonizing death from thirst. He found a piece of charcoal and wrote a final note to his wife on a scrap of cardboard. And then, with his pocket knife, he cut his wrists. He lay down in that old tomb, closed his eyes, and just waited for the end. But death didn't want him. And this is where the story gets truly unbelievable. In this crazy paradox, the very thing that was killing him is what ended up saving him. He was so severely dehydrated that his blood had become thick like syrup. It couldn't flow freely from the cuts. Instead, it clotted almost instantly, sealing the wounds. He was literally rejected by death. So when he opened his eyes to the morning sun, you can just imagine his shock to find he was still alive. To Mauro, this was nothing less than a sign from a higher power. If death itself wouldn't take him, then he was meant to live. A new kind of strength, this powerful resolve, just surged through him. He patched himself up and he walked out of that shrine, ready to face the desert again. And with this renewed spirit, he starts his final epic trek. He pulled out his compass and just started walking toward a distant mountain range. He was smart about it, only moving in the cooler hours of the morning and evening. During the brutal midday heat, he'd hide under a bush. At night, he'd bury himself in the sand to stay warm.
So,
Just how far off course had he gone? Well, when they finally found him, they figured it out. He had wandered a staggering 291 kilometers from the race route. That's how far he'd walked. He had literally crossed the border from Morocco into Algeria on foot.
And the physical toll was just immense. I mean, over 9 days, his body was completely ravaged. He lost 15 kilograms. That's nearly 33 pounds. He was little more than a walking skeleton when they found him.
On that 9th day, after stumbling into a small oasis, he followed signs of life until he finally saw her, a young Tuareg girl with her goats. It was the first human being he'd laid eyes on in over a week. He looked so emaciated, so frightening, that she actually ran away at first. But thankfully she came back with her grandmother, and they took him in and gave him shelter and food.
Back home, his family had already been told he was dead. So when he reappeared, it was a national celebration in Italy. But what's truly mind-blowing isn't just that he survived. It's what he decided to do next.
Now, most people would never ever want to see a desert again, right? But not Mauro. Look at this. After that first attempt in 1994, which he obviously didn't finish, he went back to the Marathon des Sables an incredible 6 more times. And he didn't just show up. He finished every single one of them, and even placed 13th one year. It's just astonishing.
You see, the desert didn't break him. It forged him into something stronger. He actually developed this deep love and respect for the wilderness that almost took him. He had to go back. He had to prove to himself, and maybe to the Sahara itself, that he could conquer it on his own terms.
Mauro's story really forces you to ask this question, right? Is survival just about your heart continuing to beat? Or is it about something more? Is it about returning to the source of your deepest trauma and turning it into your greatest triumph? For Mauro Prosperi, the answer seems pretty clear.